Hello friends. Have you ever met someone whose soul feels like a deep ocean wrapped in soft velvet? Someone so creative, sensitive, and emotionally rich that being around them feels like stepping into a dream you don't want to wake up from. That, my friends, is the magic of a person born under the Pisces zodiac sign and in the year of the goat. This is a unique astrological cocktail. Dreamy water energy from Pisces mixed with the gentle, artistic, yet determined soul of the Chinese goat. People born under this combination often seem like they're walking poetry, but don't be fooled. Underneath that soft surface lies resilience, depth, and a fascinating duality that makes them unforgettable. Let's dive deep into the emotional oceans and misty hillsides of their world. Love, a fairy tale with unexpected chapters. Pisces goat individuals love like artists paint, in layers, textures, and vibrant emotion. But those layers? They're deep. Each one tells a story, carries a memory, holds a dream. Love, for them, isn't casual. It's not a phase or a distraction. It's sacred. They approach romance with a level of sincerity and intensity that's rare in the modern world. When a Pisces goat falls in love, it's like a symphony begins in their soul, subtle, emotional, but overwhelming in its beauty. You won't just be their partner. You'll become a chapter in the mythic story they're always telling themselves about what love is supposed to be. They believe in soulmates, utterly, completely, almost recklessly. But not the swipe right, what do you do for work, kind. They're chasing something timeless. Their ideal love is cinematic, poetic, a little bit tragic even, the kind where every glance carries meaning, every touch lingers. Think handwritten letters, songs that make them cry, and rewatching that one scene in a romantic film that wrecks them every time. They want love to feel fated. They want it to feel like a reunion, not a first meeting. You don't date a Pisces goat. You collide with them in a way that feels predestined. They fall hard, they fall fast, and they fall deep. One meaningful conversation, one shared vulnerability, one accidental brush of hands, and suddenly they're imagining a future with you. It's not desperation, it's just that they see people through the lens of possibility. They see the best version of you before you even become it. But this intensity also sets them up for heartbreak. Because they expect love to be transformative, they often ignore red flags, thinking love will heal everything. They'll convince themselves the person just needs time, or patience, or understanding, and meanwhile, their own needs quietly starve. Because they idealize love, they are also chronically disappointed. The real world rarely lives up to the one they've painted in their head. They're not unrealistic, they just have a hard time letting go of the dream. They want emotional intimacy more than anything, the kind that doesn't need to be spoken. They want to be known, completely, and still adored. A glance that says, I understand, a touch that means, I'm with you, a silence that feels like safety. These are their currencies, and when they don't receive that emotional connection, they start to question everything, themselves, the relationship, even love itself. Give them poetry, give them rituals, give them time. They are seduced not by grand gestures, but by sincerity. A late-night conversation about your childhood fears will move them more than a luxury dinner ever could. If you remember small details, like how they take their tea or which artist makes them cry, you will earn a place in their heart that few ever reach. They are surprisingly low maintenance on the surface but profoundly high maintenance emotionally. They don't want everything, they want meaning, authenticity, connection. If you offer those, they will give you loyalty that outlasts the seasons. Yet despite all their softness, the goat influence makes them cautious, even pragmatic. They're dreamers, yes, but they're also deeply afraid of pain. They want fantasy, but they need security. They're torn between the stars and the soil. You'll often find them dancing between trusting too quickly and closing off too soon. This inner conflict means they can be hard to read at times. They may seem warm one moment, distant the next. It's not you, it's the battle between their yearning and their fear. And when they are hurt, they don't rage. They withdraw. They disappear into their own private sadness, telling no one, showing nothing. It's a quiet kind of heartbreak, but a deep one. If you love a Pisces goat, be gentle with their dreams. Protect them, don't mock them. Believe in them, even when they doubt themselves. They are not hard to love, but they are easy to damage. When they feel safe, they bloom in ways that are breathtaking, giving affection freely, supporting your goals as if they were their own, and creating a love that feels like sanctuary. They will stand by you in silence, defend you in your absence, and love you in ways you won't even notice until years later. With them, love is never ordinary, it's sacred, stormy, and unforgettable. Marriage, a home made of dreams and silence. Marriage for a Pisces goat isn't just a milestone, it's a deeply emotional and almost mystical experience. To them, it's not about legal ties or practical living arrangements. It's a sacred convergence of souls, a merging of two inner worlds. They dream of a union built not on shared chores or financial plans, but on trust, tenderness, and an unspoken connection that feels like fate. They don't seek a spouse as much as a co-dreamer, someone to share silent mornings, whispered thoughts, and a life wrapped in meaning. If love is a song, marriage is their lifelong composition, and they want every note to matter. In this dream-built home, Pisces goats become profoundly devoted, nurturing partners. They have a natural instinct to care, not out of duty, but because their heart literally aches when the person they love is in pain. They'll remember how you take your coffee, what side of the bed you prefer, the name of the stuffed animal from your childhood. They give in small, quiet ways, bringing you a scarf because the wind felt cold today, or pausing their own dreams to support yours. Their love language is thoughtful detail, and their actions whisper, "I see you," even when you're not speaking. Yet, this beautiful loyalty has a downside. Pisces goats can overgive, sometimes to the point of losing themselves in their partner's life. They will often silence their own needs, afraid of creating conflict or seeming too much. They take on emotional labor without complaint, always checking in, always making space, always smoothing over the rough edges. But inside, they may be crumbling, aching for their partner to notice that they need holding, too. They don't ask for much, but they crave recognition, affection, and the gentle reassurance that they matter not just as a support system, but as a soul in need of nurturing too. Their emotional intuition is both a gift and a burden in marriage. Pisces goats absorb energy like water absorbs dye, fully and without filter. If their partner comes home angry or distracted, they feel it instantly. If there's emotional coldness, sarcasm, or distance, they carry it like a wound. But instead of expressing it directly, they often retreat into quiet sadness. They're not confrontational, they don't explode. Instead, they slowly shrink, becoming quieter, more withdrawn, often turning to journaling, music, or daydreams as a way to process what they're too afraid to say aloud. Their silence isn't indifference, it's a cry for softness. And that's the paradox of marriage with a Pisces goat. They want boundless love, but they fear rejection. They long for emotional closeness, yet instinctively hide when hurt. Their biggest need in a long-term partnership is emotional safety, the sense that they can be vulnerable without judgment, that they can cry without being dismissed, and that their dreams, however strange or soft, will be protected. Without this safety, they begin to emotionally vanish, maintaining the outer shell of commitment while the inner connection quietly fades. A lasting marriage with a Pisces goat requires intentional tenderness. Not grand gestures, but daily emotional care. They thrive on softness, morning cuddles, shared dreams, mutual respect. They don't just want loyalty, they want emotional presence. They want someone who listens with their whole heart, who's attuned not just to their words but to the spaces in between. And in return, they offer a kind of love that's rare, a romantic devotion fused with emotional depth, the kind that can make even the most ordinary life feel like a shared poem. They also need space to dream, even within marriage. They must be allowed their solitude, their books, their art, their quiet time with nature or music or just their own thoughts. If their partner respects this need for gentle detachment, the Pisces goat will always return with renewed affection. But if pressured to be on all the time, or if criticized for being too sensitive or too dreamy, they may begin to detach not just physically but spiritually. And when that happens, reconnecting takes time and patience. So, to marry a Pisces goat is to commit not just to a person, but to a soul in motion, always feeling, always dreaming, always loving with everything they've got. If you're willing to build a home from emotion, silence, and small moments that matter, they'll give you a love that endures not just through years, but lifetimes. Sex. Slow-burning passion with a spiritual spark. Sex with a Pisces goat is not about thrill-seeking or conquest. It's a soulful ceremony, a way to transcend the limits of the physical and step into something far more profound. They don't chase hookups or fleeting moments of gratification. They want alchemy, the kind that happens when two people become completely attuned to each other, body and spirit intertwined. For them, intimacy is less about climax and more about connection, about breathing in sync, understanding through touch, and creating a moment that feels suspended outside of time. If you're after wild, no strings attached passion, you're in the wrong story. Pisces goats want a plot, a purpose, a pulse, something real. Their relationship to sex is deeply tied to emotion. They simply cannot separate the act from the feeling. Physical attraction is important, yes, but for them to fully open up, there must be trust, respect, and a certain magic in the air. They want to know you first, your fears, your past, your voice in the dark. Without that emotional safety net, sex can feel hollow or even invasive to them. But once that trust is established, they become generous, explorative, and emotionally intelligent lovers, eager to create an experience that honors both of you. They're not there to impress, they're there to connect. Their sensuality runs deep, rooted in the Pisces' sensitivity to energy and the goat's appreciation for aesthetics. Every little thing matters to them: the lighting, the smell of your skin, the sound of your breath. They're hypersensitive to sensory detail, and they'll notice things no one else does: how your voice changes when you're vulnerable, how you flinch slightly when touched a certain way, how your breath catches before you say, "I love you." They respond to these cues like music, improvising their responses in a dance of attentiveness and presence. With them, even a single kiss can feel profound. They don't rush. In fact, they actively dislike being rushed. They prefer a slow, simmering build-up, eye contact across the room, fingers brushing as you pass each other, the shared electricity of simply existing near someone you trust. For a Pisces goat, foreplay is half the experience, and often more important than the act itself. They don't follow a script. They listen, adapt, feel. They intuit what you need, even before you say it, and their ability to be present in the moment makes every touch feel amplified. What others might consider simple, holding hands under the covers, tracing a shoulder with fingertips, they turn into poetry. When they feel emotionally secure, they reveal their open-mindedness in bed. Pisces goats are not prudish. They're imaginative, curious, and willing to explore, but only if the emotional foundation is solid. They're less about shock value and more about shared vulnerability. Want to try something new? Suggest it gently, and you'll likely find them not only willing but excited, if it means deepening the connection. Their aim is never to dominate or be dominated, but to merge, to melt into one another until boundaries blur. It's not performance, it's communion. Above all, their ultimate goal in sex is fusion, not just of bodies, but of mind, heart, and soul. They want to feel like time has stopped, like the world has disappeared, like you've entered a sacred space built just for the two of you. Afterward, they'll often want to stay close, holding, whispering, existing in that lingering glow of shared intimacy. To them, physical closeness after sex is not optional, it's essential. It affirms the emotional connection they've just shared. Distant or dismissive behavior afterward? That wounds them deeply and may close them off for good. So if you're with a Pisces goat and thinking of taking things further, remember, it's not about what you do, it's about what you feel. Be kind, be patient, be emotionally honest. Give them a safe space to be themselves, and they will invite you into a world of sensuality that is rich, sacred, and unforgettable. Their touch isn't just touch, it's language. Their intimacy isn't just pleasure, it's prayer. And their love, when fully unlocked, will echo long after the lights are out. Friendship, quiet loyalty, deep bonds. Friendship with a Pisces goat is like discovering a hidden room in a familiar house, subtle, surprising, and filled with beauty you didn't know you needed. These individuals don't collect acquaintances or float from group to group chasing popularity. They're selective with their emotional investments, and when they let you in, it's because something about you genuinely resonates with their soul. They're not the friend shouting across the room or hyping everyone up at the party. They're the one sitting beside you when no one else notices you're fading. They aren't loud, but their presence is profoundly felt, steady, sincere, and impossibly rare. When a Pisces goat becomes your friend, they are present in a way most people only pretend to be. They don't just listen, they absorb. Tell them once that you love thunderstorms, and they'll send you a poem about rain weeks later. Mention that your grandmother made a special soup, and they'll try to recreate it for you. These are the friends who show up without being asked. They'll check in when you're silent, celebrate your quiet wins, and remember the names of your pets, siblings, and the book that made you cry. Their emotional radar is always on, and their empathy goes bone deep. They naturally attract people who live on the edges, the misunderstood, the creative, the lost, and the deeply feeling. Why? Because something about the Pisces goat radiates safety. They don't judge. They don't interrupt with advice you didn't ask for. They hold space. It's no surprise that artists, dreamers, empaths, and even emotionally bruised people gravitate toward them. People open up easily to Pisces goats, often saying, "I've never told anyone this before." That's their gift, being a harbor for people drifting through life's storms, without ever asking for anything in return. However, this compassion has limits, quiet, firm, and final. Because while Pisces goats are endlessly forgiving in small matters, betrayal hits them harder than most. They give so much of themselves, often without fully protecting their own emotional boundaries, that when someone violates that trust, it feels like a wound to the soul. And they rarely explode or make a scene. There are no dramatic goodbyes, no angry texts. They just vanish. One day you're in their world, and the next, you're not. It's not cruelty, it's survival. When the emotional contract is broken, they walk away with grace, but they don't turn back. This quiet exit can leave people stunned, because Pisces goats aren't vindictive. They don't smear your name. They don't retaliate. They simply stop offering access to their inner world, and that absence becomes deafening. What once felt like warmth and comfort becomes silence, and in that silence is a powerful message: you had something rare. And now it's gone. This is not to punish, but to protect themselves. Once trust is shattered, they can't unfeel it, and even if they forgive, the connection is never quite the same. To befriend a Pisces goat is to experience loyalty that is soft-spoken but unshakable. They won't always text first, or show up loudly, but they're always thinking of you. They're the ones who'll send you a voice memo when you're spiraling, leave a note in your coat pocket just to make you smile, or sit beside you in silence because they know you just need someone there. Their love language is consistency, and their superpower is emotional presence. When life gets messy and loud, they are the calm beneath the chaos. Their friendships are often lifelong, but only with those who honor the unspoken emotional contract they live by: be honest. Be kind. Be real. Break that, and you may never get another chance. But if you cherish them, protect their softness, and meet them halfway in emotional depth, they will be one of the most meaningful connections you'll ever have. With them, friendship is not about constant noise. It's about knowing someone is there, quietly, always, like a lighthouse that never asks to be seen, but still keeps the night from swallowing you whole. Business: the creative underdog who outsmarts everyone. At first glance, Pisces goats might seem too tender-hearted, too emotionally rich, too dreamy to navigate the cutthroat world of business. They aren't naturally aggressive or hungry for dominance, and they don't fit the stereotypical mold of a CEO barking orders from a boardroom. But that's exactly why they succeed, quietly, brilliantly, and often without anyone realizing they were in the game until they've already won. Their strength isn't in out-shouting or overpowering. It's in out-thinking. They watch, they listen, they understand people on a level others can't. And then, when the timing is right, they strike with precision, empathy, and unshakable creativity. Pisces goats thrive in roles that demand vision, intuition, and emotional intelligence. These are the branding geniuses who can tap into the soul of a product and make people feel something about it. They're the designers who build not just beautiful interfaces, but entire emotional experiences. They're the therapists, spiritual coaches, storytellers, and musicians who move people at their core. But don't be fooled by their artistic flair. These are also savvy business minds who understand how emotion drives markets. While others chase trends, Pisces goats anticipate them. They don't just sell a product, they sell a feeling. And feelings drive loyalty. They often avoid the spotlight, not out of shyness, but because their focus is on creating impact, not collecting applause. Power and fame rarely motivate them. What does? Purpose. A Pisces goat will work relentlessly behind the scenes, fine-tuning their vision, perfecting the messaging, building something meaningful while everyone else is busy chasing attention. Then suddenly, they emerge, not as loud disruptors, but as undeniable leaders who have already built something extraordinary. They rise because they are impossible to ignore when their work speaks with such depth and emotional clarity. Within teams and organizations, Pisces goats are the quiet catalysts. They're the ones who notice when morale is dropping or when an idea hasn't been fully heard. They're not interested in dominating conversations, they want collaboration that actually feels collaborative. In meetings, they're often the last to speak, but when they do, people listen. Their words carry thought, compassion, and subtle brilliance. They bring people together, intuitively smoothing over tension, amplifying the quiet voices in the room, and guiding the energy towards something more cohesive. You might not see them taking credit, but chances are, they're the reason the whole thing didn't fall apart. Yet with all this brilliance comes a shadow, self-doubt. Pisces goats are often their own harshest critics. They'll spend weeks crafting something beautiful, only to hesitate before hitting send. They worry if it's good enough. They question whether anyone will understand. They compare themselves to louder, more confident peers and forget that their quiet genius is a power in itself. This can lead to missed opportunities, undercharging for their work, or staying too long in roles where they're undervalued. The irony? These are the same people with groundbreaking ideas sitting in their journals, unpublished songs in their voice memos, or brand campaigns that could redefine a market, if only they believed in them. What Pisces goats need most in business is validation, mentorship, and a safe space to grow. Once they have that, they flourish. A mentor who recognizes their quiet intelligence can change the entire trajectory of their career. A team that allows them to speak in their own rhythm, without pushing them to perform, will unlock their full potential. And when they finally see themselves the way others do, as visionary, emotionally intelligent innovators, they stop playing small. They step into their genius. And that's when things really start to happen. Pisces goats don't build empires in a day. They build legacies over time, thoughtful, emotionally resonant brands, movements, and messages that stand the test of time. Whether they're running a holistic wellness brand, leading creative strategy for a global company, or launching an indie passion project, their work touches people in ways spreadsheets can't measure. Because when they create, they don't just solve problems. They heal, they inspire, they connect, and that, in today's business world, is a superpower. Dark sides, the gentle storm. The shadow side of the Pisces goat is not loud or destructive in the way some personalities rage through life. It's quiet, aching, and often invisible to everyone but themselves. Their softness, their empathy, and their sensitivity, the very things that make them magnetic, can also become the seeds of their undoing. Their darkness doesn't come in the form of anger or manipulation. It shows up as overwhelm, as emotional drowning, as self-erasure. They often don't lash out, they fade out. And that's what makes their struggles so easy to miss. They disappear behind smiles, apologies, and soft laughter that hides an aching heart. Empathy is their superpower, but when left unchecked, it becomes their greatest vulnerability. Pisces goats don't just listen to your pain, they absorb it, internalizing every sigh, every disappointment, every sadness you thought you masked. Their emotional boundaries are like thin veils, easily crossed, constantly shifting. They'll carry the grief of their friends, the stress of coworkers, the sadness of strangers in passing. And because they rarely express when it becomes too much, the pressure builds silently. Left alone, this unspoken weight morphs into anxiety, chronic fatigue, depression, or a yearning to escape. They often seek relief in fantasy, not because they're weak, but because reality can feel too sharp, too loud, too unforgiving for their tender spirit. Escapism is a double-edged sword in their world. On one side, it fuels their imagination, their art, their unique worldview. But on the darker side, it tempts them toward unhealthy coping mechanisms. They may become overly dependent on substances, compulsive daydreaming, or toxic relationships that let them avoid confronting real-life pain. They don't get addicted to pleasure, they get addicted to distraction. Anything that lets them avoid the confrontation they dread becomes dangerously appealing. In worst cases, they fall into patterns of passive suffering, sacrificing their needs over and over in hopes that love or kindness will eventually return to them, even when it doesn't. One of their lifelong challenges is assertiveness. Pisces goats are terrified of confrontation, not because they're weak, but because emotional harmony means everything to them. The idea of upsetting someone or being the cause of discord can make them physically uncomfortable. So rather than speak up, they endure. They suffer in silence, rationalizing their own pain away, writing poetic internal narratives about being misunderstood. Instead of saying, "You hurt me," they'll journal about heartbreak. Instead of asking for what they want, they'll wait, hoping someone notices their subtle cues. When those cues go unnoticed, their pain deepens, not because they weren't loved, but because they weren't seen. And then there's their complicated relationship with reality. Pisces goats don't just dream, they live in their dreams. They romanticize people, places, possibilities. They paint the world in watercolor and gold leaf, seeing beauty where others see flaws. It's breathtaking, until it breaks. When their idealism meets the brick wall of reality, the impact is devastating. Disappointment for them isn't just frustrating, it's existential. They don't just mourn what is, they mourn what could have been. And when this happens too often, some retreat into victimhood, believing the world is against them, that life is cruel, that no one understands the softness they carry. They stop steering their ship and let the tide take them, usually into loneliness, bitterness, or deep internal exile. But here's the paradox. Their darkness is also where their greatness is born. Because when a Pisces goat finally turns inward and confronts the storm, they begin to create. Out of the wreckage, they find their most powerful voice. The heartbreak they once endured becomes the foundation of a novel, a painting, a song, a movement. The emotional pain they carried for others becomes their healing gift, their wisdom, their medicine. When they learn to set boundaries without losing their tenderness, to speak truth without fear, and to see reality clearly while still honoring their vision, they become legendary. Their wounds become their compass. Their silence becomes their strength. Their softness becomes their shield. And in doing so, they prove that you don't have to shout to be powerful, you don't have to fight to win, and you don't have to be hard to survive. You just have to know when to rise from the storm, and let your soul speak louder than your fear. Life goals: creating beauty and emotional impact. Pisces goats don't move through life trying to dominate it, they move through it trying to transform it. They're not wired for power plays, status wars, or empty ambition. Their goals are rarely loud or flashy. Instead, they revolve around creating meaning, leaving an emotional footprint, and crafting beauty that whispers instead of shouts. They want to touch people, not impress them. They dream of building moments, spaces, and works that make people pause, feel, and remember. Their definition of success is deeply personal, not about how much they have, but about how deeply they've moved others and how much of their heart they've poured into the world. Legacy, for the Pisces goat, isn't about money or medals. It's about memory. They want to create something that lingers long after they're gone, not necessarily something you can hold, but something you can feel. A lullaby their child sings to their own children. A letter someone rereads every year on their birthday. A small business that heals people instead of just serving them. A garden where someone grieving can sit and finally exhale. They believe the soul is the most powerful material to work with, and their goals are shaped by a desire to bring peace, beauty, and emotional resonance into a world that often feels cold and careless. Their artistic and emotional instincts lead them to pursue goals that fuse creativity with compassion. You'll find them writing novels that explore the human condition, making films that gently unravel the ache of love lost, or starting wellness brands that center emotional care and authenticity. Even when they work in structured careers, they bring heart to everything they touch. A Pisces goat nurse will treat her patients like sacred guests. A Pisces goat marketer will craft campaigns that move people to tears. Their inner compass always points to feeling overfunction, and when they follow it, they create spaces, physical or emotional, where others feel understood. At the root of their ambition is an unquenchable desire to inspire, nurture, and connect. They don't just want to be loved, they want to be meaningful. Their goals often reflect their internal question: how can I make this better? How can I make this softer? How can I bring light into this? Whether they're curating a home, mentoring someone quietly, or writing a note to a friend at 3 a.m., their heart is always in motion. They are emotional architects, building with silence and subtlety, often unnoticed by the world, but never forgotten by those they touch. Their impact is emotional, not egotistical, and that's what makes it last. But their journey isn't all outward. A deep part of their life purpose also involves inner exploration. Many Pisces goats are spiritual seekers, wanderers of the soul who never stop asking the big questions: why am I here? What is love really? What does peace feel like? They often crave solitude, nature, or spiritual practice, not to escape, but to reconnect with something greater than themselves. They may drift from job to job, place to place, person to person, not out of indecision, but because they're listening for a deeper resonance. When they find it, that career, that calling, that cause, it feels less like achievement and more like alignment. Like finally exhaling. In the end, what Pisces goats seek isn't applause. It's intimacy with life. They want to know that what they did, said, made, or loved mattered. That someone healed, someone smiled, someone felt less alone because they were here. Their legacy might not show up in headlines or skyscrapers, but it will live in the quiet spaces, in journals, lullabies, paintings, gardens, and hearts that were forever changed by their presence. Their entire life becomes a gentle revolution, not of systems, but of souls. And that, above all, is their quiet, unshakable magic. So next time you meet someone soft-spoken, always dreaming, but somehow always knowing, someone who feels your feelings before you say a word, you might just be in the presence of a Pisces goat. They won't be the loudest voice in the room. In fact, they might not say much at all at first. But their eyes will be speaking volumes, watching everything, feeling everything, quietly collecting the emotional currents in the space around them. You'll notice something gentle about them, almost otherworldly, like they belong somewhere just a little beyond the here and now. They'll smile softly when others are angry, tilt their head slightly when you're upset, and somehow know exactly what to say, or when to say nothing. Pisces goats have a rare gift. They tune into what's beneath the surface. They don't just hear your words, they hear your silences. They move through life like dreamers, but don't be fooled. There's ancient wisdom beneath that soft exterior. There's knowing in them that doesn't come from textbooks or facts, but from emotion, memory, and quiet observation. They pick up on patterns, absorb moods, and intuit truths that others miss. While the world rushes to react, Pisces goats reflect. They'll stop to feel, to consider, to imagine. They're always halfway between this world and another, dreaming not because they're naive, but because they see what could be as clearly as most people see what is. Their dreams aren't distractions, they're roadmaps, blueprints of a more meaningful life. And if you're lucky enough to truly be seen by one, you'll understand why their presence feels like home. They don't just understand, they empathize. They'll cry with you without needing a reason. They'll remember something you said offhand 2 months ago because it mattered to you. They'll sit in silence with you when there are no words and make it feel like that silence is exactly what you needed. To be loved or even liked by a Pisces goat is to be held emotionally, not with arms, but with understanding. They carry you quietly. They never ask for recognition, but they're the ones you'll look back on and realize were always there. Cherish them, because they're rare in a world that rewards performance over presence. They don't want to win the race, they want to make the journey meaningful. They're not trying to impress, they're trying to connect. They don't chase attention, they offer attention. And they do it all with such natural grace that you might not even notice until one day, when you're hurting, you realize they're the only one who saw it coming. They love gently, stand loyally, and give deeply, even when they have little left to give. But they won't ask for much in return, just to be seen. To be safe, to be allowed to be as soft as they truly are. Because they don't just live life. They feel it, for all of us. When others numb out, they lean in. When others avoid, they embrace. When others forget to care, they remember everything. They carry the emotional weight of the world in the quietest way, and somehow, they still keep dreaming. Still keep loving, still keep hoping, and that kind of heart, that kind of courage wrapped in softness, is a kind of strength this world desperately needs more of. So when you find them, those rare, knowing, always dreaming souls, don't let them go. Protect their light. It's lighting the way for all of us.